So all during Lent, I'm going to be talking about transformation, about transforming. Because that's what Lent should do for us, is that we should be transformed. And the imagery in today's readings fits well with the theme of transforming our lives for Lent. Paul, of course, in how Paul does things, uses a comparison to make his point. Be like this. Do not do that. You're with God and transformed, or you're out. Pick. Pick one, pick the other. And for many of us, this binary, this either or, this black and white, is never helpful. And it is easy to see why Paul is sometimes considered kind of divisive. Add to that the number of imposters who wrote Pauline-style letters or added phrases to later copies of his manuscripts. Sometimes it's tempting to avoid his writings altogether. But the church does not do that. That is because the nuggets of gold found among the minefields of statements, we see one of those kernels today, one of those golden nuggets today. He will transform the body of our humiliation, that it may be conformed to the body of his glory. That's what Paul says. Paul didn't get along with the apostles because he often believed he had the answers, even though he had never met Jesus. The apostles did not trust his visions because he was sometimes a hothead. Paul was sometimes a hothead. And because of that, he was sometimes imprisoned. Sometimes he had to run away in the night or was just completely run out of town. But one thing Paul knew about humiliation. Paul knew about cruelty. But this idea, transformation of the humbling things that happen to people with little power. Well, that's right on point with the message of Jesus in our lives. We are not transformed into followers of the way of Jesus because it is easy or because it comes with power, but because we tap our compassion. We recognize the needs of those among us. The body of Jesus' glory is both in heaven and here on earth because growth takes time. It means we can start that transformation of our spirits anew each and every single day. Each day is a new day to be transformed. Jesus had to choose between what is right and easy in his journey, especially in today's reading. He is on the threshold of Jerusalem. His heart is heavy with sorrow, but his arms are open with love. The Pharisees who normally were kind of out to get Jesus, it seems like, but they come and they warn him. The Pharisees warn him that Herod wants to kill him. But Jesus is undeterred because his path is set. His heart is resolved. I must be on my way, he says, knowing that the road leads to sacrifice. Even in the face of death, his instinct is not to recoil, but to gather. Like a mother hen shielding her vulnerable chicks beneath her wings, Jesus longs to draw us close, to enfold us in the fierce tenderness of his love. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, he cries. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. Can you hear the ache in his voice? Can you hear the tender yearning of a heart that knows rejection, but remains steadfast in love? This idea of Jesus as a loving parent, as a mother embracing her children, is one where he moves beyond the role of some impersonal preacher, someone you might see as just a passerby, into the intimate role of someone invested in his children, into his people. Jesus becomes the fierce guardian of all who need help. Many times, Christ is often seen as both king and protector, the one who walks alongside us on the rugged path, and the one who shelters us beneath his cloak when the storms come. This protective image of the mother hen speaks to that same fierce but gentle care. Under his wings, we are invited to lay down our fear, lay down our resistance, lay down our pride, lay down all of the barriers we raise against love. But how often do we resist his gathering? How often do we resist gathering under Jesus? How often do we scatter like restless birds, choosing the illusion of self-sufficiency over the safety of his wings? We may not even realize sometimes that we are resisting. The noise of the world draws us outward, scattering our attention and scattering our hearts. We grow weary, feeling exposed, feeling vulnerable. But we hesitate to seek shelter in the very arms that are open to us. Jesus' lament over Jerusalem is not one of anger. It is one of grief. The grief of a love offered and then refused. And yet, his desire to gather us does not waver. His path towards Jerusalem remains steady. His love remains open. Even when we resist, even when we stray, he stands with arms outstretched, calling us home. Perhaps the invitation today is to notice the ways we resist being gathered. Where have you been running from God's love? Where have you sought refuge in things that cannot shelter you? So today, pause. Breathe. Perhaps imagine yourself beneath the outstretched wings of the divine, beneath the vast star-laden night sky. And the wind may be sharp at times, and the path is uncertain most of the time. But remember, you are not alone. Let yourself rest in God's warmth and care, in Jesus' warmth and care. Let yourself be gathered. Be gathered. Be transformed. That is what Jesus is asking us to do. Amen.